Welcome and thank you for joining us for CFP Board's Business Update webinar. I'm Kevin Keller, CFP Board's CEO. Today we'll hear updates from the latest Board of Directors meeting. We have an update on the recently released proposed revisions to CFP Board Standards of Professional Conduct. We'll take a look at CFP Board's 4 A's, the 5-year strategic priorities, with the updates on CFP Board's Center for Financial Planning, as well as CFP Board's work with its educational partners. And we'll also address questions from the audience. Before we get into today's presentation, let me cover just a few housekeeping rules. If you run into issues with the audio for this presentation, or if it seems like the slides are out of sync, try refreshing your webinar console. There is a Q&A function on your screen that you can use to submit questions to us at any time during the program. We'll try to address as many questions as possible during the Q&A session at the end. And if we don't get to your specific question today during the broadcast, CFP Board will follow up to provide you with a written answer. With me here today are Blaine Aikin, 2017 Chair of the Board of Directors, and Richard Salmen, 2017 Chair-elect. Thank you all for joining us here today. We're broadcasting, for those of you who know Blaine, he's a staunch Pittsburgh supporter. We're actually here in Pittsburgh, where the Board of Directors just wrapped up its 3rd in-person meeting for 2017. Blaine, why don't you share some of the updates from the meeting with us?
Sure, Kevin, I'd be happy to do that. And it's been a busy day for the 3 of us, actually busy 3 days for us here. The Board of Directors has been meeting these past few days for our regular business meeting. And in addition to updates on a number of governance and operational topics, we were also joined at the meeting by special guests from the Financial Planning Standards Board. We had Pamela Packard, who is FPSB's 2017 chairperson, and Noel May, FPSB's Chief Executive Officer. So as we talk a little bit more about FPSB, you see here the vision and mission of the organization, which are in many ways a global extension of CFP Board's vision and mission. Worldwide, there are more than 170,000 CFP professionals certified by FPSB members in 26 territories, and that includes the nearly 78,000 CFP professionals certified by CFP Board here in the U.S. Pamela and Noel shared FPSB's latest strategic plan, and we had opportunities to discuss alignment of that plan with CFP Board's own strategic plan. We've also explored opportunities where we may have the most exciting opportunities to work together with FPSB and our international counterparts as well. Among our shared goals are upholding CFP certification as the standard of excellence for financial planning, also to increase awareness of the value of financial planning in CFP professionals, and also establishing financial planning as a recognized profession. We did invite the FPSB to share feedback with us on our recent proposals to revise the standards of professional conduct. Those ethics and practice standards for CFP professionals are really an important part of the CFP certification brand around the globe. So let's turn to that. It's important overall to CFP Board's mission and our strategic priority of authority that we have a strong and relevant code of ethics and a set of practice standards that truly reinforce the CFP certification standing as a symbol of excellence for competent and ethical personal financial planning. CFP Board's standards for ethics and practice are essential parts of the CFP certification, and they really do form the foundation for the public's trust and confidence in CFP professionals. When we established that commission, we did so with a very well-defined and intentionally deliberate process that featured opportunities for public input before the commission even began to develop those recommendations. So at the top of 2016, the commission held 9 public forums around the country to get initial input Kevin, you and I were really running around the country at that point in time, along with others from CFP Board. And so we had, in addition to that, some special meetings with leaders of the FPA and NAPFA and also FPSB. We met with key volunteer groups at CFP Board, including the Disciplinary and Ethics Commission and the Business Model Council. So the Commission took that feedback into consideration as it developed a set of recommendations for revising the standards. And then last month, the Board reviewed the Commission's recommendations and authorized the release of a draft of proposed revisions to the standards. So now we're in that mode of requesting feedback again on the proposals, specifically the proposals that have been authorized for release by the Board, and we're doing that during a 60-day comment period. So, the proposal is a very thorough rewrite of the current standards of professional conduct, and here on this slide you see that there are some key changes in the proposal. The 4 documents that comprise the current set of standards have been combined into one new document. And that document is titled Code of Ethics and Standards of Conduct. We've addressed compensation-related terms, that there are more detailed, and compensation disclosures do apply to CFP professionals as well as to their own firms. So the practice standards have also been updated to reflect changes in how it's currently being delivered. Things change over the course of time, as we know, and we want to make sure we captured that, and I think that the Commission did an outstanding job of accomplishing that.
Blaine, I'm going to ask you to speak up just a little bit.
Sure.
We're hearing some of the comments coming back that we need to be a little louder.
All right. I'm going to cozy up a little bit more to the speaker. Another aspect of this is that, and this is an important one, I think, where there is a rebuttable presumption that financial planning is required in a client engagement that involves advice. And under those circumstances, the practice standards will apply, those being the financial planning practice standards. But I have to say that the cornerstone of the revisions in the proposed standards relate to the fiduciary duty of CFP professionals. The proposed standards define fiduciary duty to include a duty of loyalty, a duty of care, and a duty to follow client instructions. So these are standard fare, as we know, with respect to fiduciary obligations. And under these current standards, CFP professionals are required to act as a fiduciary when providing, this would be under the current standards, CFP professionals are required to act as a fiduciary when providing financial planning. The proposed standards extend a CFP professional's obligation to act as a fiduciary at all times when providing financial advice to a client. So since the definition of financial advice is broader than the definition of financial planning, the draft revised standards do expand the commitment that all CFP professionals make to act in their client's best interests. So the proposal recognizes that not all clients want financial planning services, and it outlines what a CFP professional must do in those circumstances. The client must be informed as to how choosing not to engage in financial planning might put constraints on the advice that the CFP professional may provide, and then the client and CFP professional must decide how to define the engagement to address those constraints or to end the engagement if it's not going to be workable at that point or acceptable to the parties. So these are some of the major changes that you'll find in the proposed standards. And with the proposed standards, CFP Board retains its neutral stance on business models and compensation methods. As with our current standards, we believe that CFP professionals can uphold the proposed standards within a variety of business models by carefully managing conflicts of interest in a manner that serves the client's best interest. We hope that every CFP professional will take the time to review the proposed new standards carefully and to let us know whether we have things right or if there are areas that we should consider changing. The Board is going to be considering the feedback received during that comment period of this 60-day open window for comments before we decide on any final revisions to the standards. And when we do adopt the final set of standards, they will be announced along with an effective date for implementation.
Blaine, we had a question here from Dan Kandura, and he asked, will they be effective in January of 2018?
Right.
And so the board will announce, but I can't imagine a scenario where we would adopt them in November and they would be effective in January.
Yes, I don't see that happening. I think what the board will obviously look at is a time period that makes implementation very possible and practical. So as we now are in this comment period, we really do want your feedback, and there's a number of ways for you to provide it to us. The 60-day comment period is open through August 21st, so you can visit our website to review the full proposal and the related resources associated with the proposed revised standards. And we do encourage you to please take the time to share your feedback through the website or by sending an email to comments@cfpboard.org. We're also providing opportunities to share your feedback with us in person. So just like our trip on the road trip before, we're going to be out again.
And I saw that Nick Nicolette of FPA is online, and we should mention for the FPA members that Nick and the association is working hard to gather information for the member advocacy group. And I know I've seen a survey for NAPFA members, so if you're not up to writing a full comment letter, certainly the membership associations that are part of the coalition are seeking feedback, and there are mechanisms to make sure your voice is heard.
That's a great point, Kevin. And, in those initial forums that we had, both the FPA and NAPFA did a great job of getting folks out to those sessions and providing some extremely valuable feedback. And I know they'll be doing the same here during this comment period. And so we're going to be having these 8 public forums around the country between July 24 and 27. So we will be there to review and discuss the proposed standards and to listen to the feedback from the CFP professional community and the public. So I hope many of you who are listening today will have the opportunity to join us. The proposed standards are obviously very important to the public and to everyone involved with CFP certification. So I can't emphasize enough that it's extremely important to the board that we hear feedback from as many people as possible. So I mentioned that the proposed standards are related to CFP Board's strategic priority of authority. So at this point, I'd like to turn things over to Richard, who's going to walk us through all of CFP Board's strategic priorities and share about some of the other initiatives that we have underway. So Richard, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Blaine. As you mentioned, the proposed standards and all of the work we do is directly tied to our mission and our strategic priorities. Last November, in 2016, the Board of Directors adopted the 4 A's strategic priorities, which form a strategic plan to take us through the year 2021. All of the new strategic priorities are tied to CFP Board's mission to benefit the public. And those 4 priorities are, number 1, growing awareness of CFP certification as the recognized standard for competent and ethical financial planners. Number 2, expanding access to competent and ethical financial planning by increasing both the number and diversity of CFP professionals. 3, assuring accountability by holding CFP professionals to rigorous standards and by advocating for fiduciary advice, recognition of financial planning as a profession, and effective regulation of financial planners. And 4, serving as the respected authority for the profession by setting standards, certifying financial planners, and by advancing the Center for Financial Planning. The authority priority encompasses all of CFP Board's work to set standards and certify financial planners, and, as Blaine mentioned, it also includes our work in reviewing and update the standards of professional conduct. The CFP Board Center for Financial Planning is another essential part of the authority priority, even as the center really sits at the intersection of many of our priorities. The impetus for the center was to address the challenges facing the financial planning profession. After much preparation and planning, we officially launched the center in November of 2015, so almost 2 years ago now. The center seeks to create a more diverse and sustainable financial planning profession so that every American has access to competent and ethical financial planning advice. CFP Board obviously cannot do that alone, but our unique position in the industry puts us at the crossroads of both people and organizations that can achieve that ambitious goal. We are generating collective input and resources for collective action and focusing on a solutions-based approach that leads from research to action to results. The center's work is focused on three key initiatives. The first, diversity, is addressing the lack of gender and racial diversity within the financial planning profession so that it can meet the growing and increasingly diverse needs of the American consumer. The second, workforce development, is focused on attracting and developing the next generation of financial planning professionals with the knowledge and skills to competently and ethically serve the public, while at the same time bringing innovative, research-based techniques and approaches to advance the practice of financial planning. The third, academic home, is focused on opportunities for showcasing and publishing new research, adding to the financial planning body of knowledge, and supporting tenure and promotion of financial planning faculty, with the ultimate goal of creating more financial planning programs at colleges and universities, more students, and then more qualified professionals entering the workforce. The center has programs underway for each of these initiatives. For example, as part of our diversity initiative, we launched the I Am a CFP Pro awareness campaign to encourage more young people, particularly women and people of color, to consider a career as a CFP professional, focusing on three important objectives. One, to change current perceptions about the financial planning profession by demonstrating that young women and people of color are succeeding as financial planners. Two, to increase awareness and consideration of a career in financial planning by highlighting both its personal rewards and fulfillment benefits. And three, to encourage young people to learn more about financial planning and CFP certification. The campaign's website, cfppro.org, is full of content designed for young adults with videos and Instagram feeds and easy-to-share content. The center is working to share the campaign through social media, earned media, and paid media, as well as outreach to schools with a customizable campaign toolkit. The center is also working to establish partnerships with organizations that reach our target audiences, such as educational organizations and diversity focus groups, and working to generate earned media placements that raise awareness of the campaign and its message that financial planning is a great career. And we absolutely want your help in spreading that word. There are a number of ways that you can get involved in this important campaign. Visit the website. Tell your story through social media using #CFPPro, and dispel a myth or two about financial planning as you do so. Share the campaign videos with your social media networks, and get in touch with career services people at your firm or alma mater and encourage them to visit the cfppro.org site and educate their employees, students, and alumni about careers in financial planning. And if you'd like our center staff to reach out to your contacts, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. So the center has a number of very ambitious programs that are strengthening the profession, and to achieve success, all of them will require support from across the profession. Our Win-to-Win mentorship program is designed to connect women on the path to CFP certification with mentors who are already certified. It helps further the center's diversity priority, but also connects to the center's workforce development priority. The program is off to a very strong start, with more than 1,000 mentees and 500 mentors having signed up to participate. Nearly 800 mentorship engagements have already been made through this program. The feedback from the participants has been very positive, and we are seeing women who complete mentorships complete the requirements to become certified. We are looking for more CFP professionals to participate as mentors in this important program, and encourage those of you listening today to sign up to participate. In the workforce development area, we partnered with a career reentry firm, iRelodge, to establish the Financial Planner Reentry Initiative. This is a pilot program that supports financial services firms in establishing return-to-work internships for experienced professional women seeking to return to the workforce after a career break. The FPRI is helping its pilot firms establish a pathway to employment for this high-caliber talent pool. FPRI is modeled after similar programs that have proven successful in other areas of financial services, as well as in the engineering and technology sectors. Internship opportunities will be offered in 2017 and 2018 in locations around the country and will be posted on centerforfinancialplanning.org/FPRI, as well as the CFP Board Career Center as they become available. We would greatly like to thank the firms participating in the Center's initial FPRI pilot, which you see listed here. I would also like to note that we already have one internship program available. The Fidelity Resume Return to Work Internship Program is a 6-month paid internship opportunity with current openings in the New York and New Jersey area. If you're interested or know someone who is, we encourage you to visit our FPRI program page at, once again, centerforfinancialplanning.org/FPRI for more information, including how to apply. We're also currently engaged in a $10 million capital campaign seeking broad-based support for the Center from across the profession. Your donation to the Center for Financial Planning will support important research and initiatives that will advance the profession of financial planning. Please take a look at the Center's website to learn more about the Center and consider how you can support this important initiative. We are seeking your financial support as well as your time and expertise to advance the work of the Center. We also want to recognize the Center's many corporate sponsors and individual donors without whom the Center and its initiatives would not have been possible. That includes a special thanks to TD Ameritrade Institutional, our lead founding sponsor, and Northwestern Mutual, our founding sponsor. Please visit the Center's website for a complete listing of both our corporate sponsors and individual donors. Now, let me turn things over to Kevin, who can share some more about the Center's Academic Home Initiative and CFP Board's work with educational programs, both those that train future CFP professionals and those that provide continuing education for current CFP professionals. Kevin?
Richard, thank you very much. The achievements of our educational partners are an essential part of CFP Board's work. Collaboration is an important element for much of our work, and we achieve our mission in large part through the financial planning services of CFP professionals. Much of the work that we realize in the CFP Board Registered Program brings to life the body of knowledge of CFP certification. And as Richard mentioned, one of the Center's major initiatives is the academic home. The academic home is that is not, by the way, where old professors go at the end of when they retire. But the academic home is addressing concerns that our registered programs have brought to CFP Board over the years, including the shortage of qualified faculty that we need to educate the profession's next generation. Quite candidly, we have 240 colleges and universities with CFP programs, and we have a dire shortage of qualified faculty to teach and lead those programs. While the audience for the Academic Home Initiative is primarily academic, we see building the academic home and the body of knowledge for the profession as a long-term workforce development initiative that will benefit everyone. More qualified faculty equals more financial planning programs in colleges and universities, which equals more students and eventually provides more qualified financial planners in the pipeline to provide service to the public. This February, we achieved a milestone for the Academic Home Initiative when we held the first academic research colloquium for financial planning and related disciplines. Now, I didn't know what a colloquium. Richard, did you know what a colloquium? Back in Ohio on the farm, we did not have colloquiums.
Those of us from Kansas had to take 6 months to learn how to pronounce it.
But the colloquium was essentially a gathering of academics. We had over 200 academics and researchers. It was quite an impressive agenda, and what I liked most of all was that it wasn't the same people you see speaking at every conference that most of us go to. These were interesting academics presenting research that was really quite relevant, interestingly, to financial planning. And these were people that I had never seen out on the speaking circuit. Now, it was also, I think, very successful because we had so many papers presented that we could only accept 30% of them. And when academics think about whether or not they're going to submit their work to the peer review, they want to submit, or at least the best ones do, want to submit where not everybody is going to be accepted. So only 3 out of 10 of the papers presented were actually accepted. We've had exceptionally positive feedback from the colloquium, and we're looking forward to the 2018 colloquium. It will actually be the week of President's Day in Arlington, Virginia, very near National Airport. We reached another milestone for the academic home in May when the Center for Financial Planning and Columbia University School of Professional Studies held the first 5-day financial planning teachers program. This groundbreaking program was designed to be an experience-based seminar that brings together financial planning content with basic instructional design. And essentially, the program, we have many people out there who are certified financial planners. They're working with their clients, and they have an interest in teaching. And so if this speaks to you, but you've never been a teacher, but you have an interest, this was a 5-day program essentially designed to teach you how to teach CFP educational content. We are pleased to be offering the second financial planning teaching seminar next year in January 8th through the 12th in San Francisco. You can find more information on the website listed here. It still will be with Columbia University, but we'll be doing it in San Francisco because not many people want to go to New York City in January for a teaching program. So we have some great new programming focused on growing faculty and teachers for the next generation of certified financial planner professionals. We are also working closely with the educational providers who develop continuing education for CFP professionals as well. In March, we announced the first group of CE, or continuing education sponsors, to achieve our CE Quality Partner status. These programs have demonstrated a commitment to developing CE programs that meet a higher set of standards outlined by CFP Board, and they are now authorized to identify themselves as CFP Board CE Quality Partners and to use the new logo on their program materials. The CE Quality Partner Program is part of a multi-year CE Quality Initiative to improve the variety and quality of CE opportunities available to CFP professionals. We've implemented several changes as part of the initiative, all of them focused on making improvements to CE standards to align with industry best practices. Today, 11 sponsors have achieved the quality status, and you'll see that the status noted when you look for CE programs on our website. We're also excited about this new program and appreciate the support of all of our sponsors in improving the quality of CE for CFP professionals. I'm also pleased to share that we've made some technological updates to make it easier for our CE sponsors to interact with CFP Board and report their hours. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for Q&A because we have, I think, a record number of people online here. I think I'll just wrap up this CE section telling you that we're streamlining. For those of you who are CE sponsors on the line, we're attempting to streamline the effort for you to report attendance. For those of you who are CFP professionals, our goal is to get the data into our system quicker. We know that when it's your renewal time, for those of you who procrastinate, it's always the jam at the last minute. You're trying to get your CE, you're trying to renew, and we're trying to streamline that process to make it as smooth as possible. So, we've covered a lot here this afternoon, but I think the most important part is to be responsive to the questions that our listeners have. We've had a number of questions sent in ahead of time. I want to remind you that there's a place right on your screen where you can submit a question. And so why don't we jump right into the Q&A? And not surprisingly, a lot of the questions that we've had are about our new standards. And so let us jump right in. Angela submitted a question about the proposed revisions to the standards, and she asks, why the big overhaul in policy? Is there a problem? Big overhaul may result in unanticipated negative outcomes rather than incremental changes to address issues identified. Blaine, what say you?
Well, Angela, we appreciate your question, and I think it's an important one because we have a process by which we're constantly taking a look at the standards and looking for opportunities to refine them. And then periodically we take that history of input and then we'll do a comprehensive review. So as I mentioned earlier, CFP Board held a series of public forums in the first quarter of 2016 whenever we decided that it was time for us to move forward with a comprehensive look at the standards. And at every single public forum, CFP professionals expressed a strong preference for CFP Board to take the four components of the standards under review. And that would be the terminology, the code of ethics and professional responsibility, the rules of conduct, and the financial planning practice standards. And they wanted us to consolidate them into one document. Now, this is something we had thought about. We laid it out there for people to comment upon, and it was very consistent in terms of the feedback we got. So the Commission on Standards listened to that and agreed with that feedback. So we've been consolidating the documents, and that's resulted in a wide variety of changes. So, for example, the Code of Ethics used to be a standalone document, and therefore it had operative language that discussed each of the principles in the code. Now that the documents have been consolidated, that operative language may be set forth in the standards themselves. The Commission and the Board also used this opportunity to update the standards in a way that is intended to benefit the CFP certification, CFP professionals, and of course the public. So the profession has changed significantly since the existing standards were implemented, and CFP Board intends for the revised Code of Ethics and Standards of Conduct to reflect the modern delivery of financial planning. So the Board deliberately weighed the pros and cons of the proposed revised Code of Ethics and Standards of Conduct, and now we want to hear from CFP professionals and the public about how they may be improved further, as I mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Blaine. A common question, and it relates, I think it's a nice follow-on to what you just spoke about, how we put the four documents into one.
Right.
Both Laura and Craig ask if we can provide a red line or a marked up version with the before and after. And Laura and Craig and others of you, in fact, I thought, wouldn't it be great if we had that? We looked at doing just that, but because the proposed standards integrate content from the four existing documents, as Blaine just explained, the document tracking changes quickly became impossible to follow. What we have made available, though, and I would encourage you to take a look at this, is an annotated copy of the proposed standards, and it includes a column on the right referencing the similarities to and the changes from the current standards. You can access that document. This will be important. Anything related to our standards, you can access that document at cfp.net/proposed-standards. That's cfp.net/proposed-standards. Richard, next question for you. Rob writes, I was glad to see CFP Board take a leadership role on the fiduciary issue. One issue I'm not hearing much about is how all of the versions of this will impact practitioners, and I'm curious if CFP Board can discuss. What does CFP Board see as the landscape for practitioners with potentially several versions of a fiduciary rule? Does CFP Board see a role in partnering or educating states that are proposing rules? Rob has a lot of questions here, and I'm curious if there are plans for a larger role beyond the increase in standards for CFP professionals.
Kevin, CFP Board welcomes a dialogue on its fiduciary standard. The Board reviewed the existing regulatory structure, including the fiduciary duty that applies under the Advisors Act and the new DOL fiduciary rule, and developed a revised fiduciary standard that is consistent with those regulatory approaches. CFP Board's proposed revised fiduciary standard, for example, contains both a duty of care and a duty of loyalty. The Board believes its proposed revised fiduciary standard is a very workable standard for all CFP professionals. A financial planner may comply with the standard by acting in the best interest of the client. With respect to CFP Board's interactions with regulators, CFP Board has met in the past with federal and state securities regulators, and CFP Board looks forward to continuing that dialogue in the future.
Thank you, Richard. Tyler writes, what are CFP Board's thoughts on fiduciary responsibility in the relation to knowledge and understanding of recommendations? For example, he tells us, it would be malpractice, he says, if a well-intentioned orthopedic surgeon were to perform heart surgery. From my experience, many advisors, including Tyler says some who have earned CFP certification, make investment recommendations without having a deep enough understanding of how the product or the strategy works. Blaine?
So I like Tyler's question, and I particularly like his analogy because I think it is an apt one. CFP Board's proposed fiduciary standard, it contains a duty of care, which does require CFP professionals to act with the care, the skill, the prudence, and diligence that a prudent professional would exercise under like circumstances. So under that standard, a CFP professional who's identifying products for implementation would need to truly understand how the products are designed to implement the recommendations. So in addition, the proposed revised standards of conduct contain a standard that requires CFP professionals to provide professional services with competence, and that means having the relevant knowledge and the skill to apply that knowledge. So it gets a little bit, you can imagine there's multiple permutations here, but the standard provides that when a CFP professional does not have sufficient competency in a particular area to provide the professional services required under the engagement, the CFP professional could certainly go gain that competence. They could obtain the assistance of a competent professional, someone that they act in concert with, or they could limit or terminate the engagement, or they could simply refer the client to a competent professional. So this really is very similar to what would be the circumstance in a medical or legal situation. Professional advice oftentimes require you to rely on the skills of others. So, and we'd welcome feedback on that element of the proposed standards.
Thanks, Blaine. Richard, a question for you. Michael asks, how does an advisor at a large investment firm comply with the updated rules?
Well, as you know, Michael, CFP Board standards apply to all CFP professionals. So with that in mind, when CFP Board formed the Commission on Standards, it sought members of the profession who operate in a wide variety of business models so that the Commission would be able to better understand how the standards would apply in each of those business models. CFP Board has a long history of working with CFP professionals working in different business models to help implement the standards. In fact, CFP Board established its Business Model Council for that express purpose. The CFP Board also looks forward to receiving comments on the draft revised standard, including how they may operate in different business models, such as at large investment firms, as you mentioned. On a going-forward basis, the CFP Board intends to continue to provide compliance resources to help CFP professionals comply with the standards.
Thanks, Richard. We have a question. I don't know. Somebody's wanting, we always come down to the struggle between how much principle versus how much rule to include in our standards. And so Al asks, please define, and then he writes very in all capital letters, very specifically, best interest of my client. In my opinion, my best interest is that you work for me for free. Maybe that is different from your definition, the DOL's definition or a plaintiff's definition. So I think, a question around what is really the best interest and how will the CFP Board look at that?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and obviously it's been one that has come up a lot in the discussion of recent regulatory changes, and in particular the DOL rule. So if you think about this, typically we're talking about a best interest standard relating to the fiduciary standard, and so you go back to the concept that of duties of loyalty and care, for example. So whenever you, under, for example, the DOL rule, whenever we talk about the best interest standard, we talk about the duty of care, meaning acting with prudence. And I mentioned in the previous answer the acting with the care, the skill, the diligence, and the good judgment of a professional. And so having that, adhering to that prudent interest or the prudent care idea is important. We can say that the best interest means that you only charge reasonable compensation, which basically means it can't be egregious, it can't be unconscionable, it needs to be competitive, fair and reasonable for the types of services that have been provided. And there is also the expectation that you cannot mislead. You have to be direct and forthright in your communications and not mislead. So these are all kind of core elements of the best interest standard. And it is a principles-based idea. And the idea of a principles-based standard is that it's evolutionary and it's based on what would a reasonable professional do under those circumstances.
And it's not a reasonable person.
That's right, because what would a reasonable person under the circumstances, and which means is acting as a professional, is a professional standard of competence. So it's the prudent professional idea.
Let's do maybe one or two more questions on the standards, because that obviously is the most important. Holly writes, please address the differences in disclosures, responsibilities, and duty to clients for CFP professionals who work for a bank and trust company versus an RIA. Richard, something you know about.
Well, CFP Board standards, as I mentioned earlier, apply to all CFP professionals, regardless of their employer or business model. Therefore, the standards apply to CFP professionals who work at a bank, and actually I, for 20 years, was one of the owners of a trust company, so as Kevin said, I'm very familiar with this, as well as those who work at an RIA. The standards do recognize that Form ADV Parts 2A and B is used by many CFP professionals, and thus it is explicitly recognized as one of the ways in which a CFP professional may provide information to a prospective client that is required under the standards. But that is only one way that you may do so. CFP professionals who do not use a Form ADV may satisfy the standards by providing the categories of information that the standards require.
Thank you, Richard. Next question, if we can go back to question Tim question 4 or 5, here it was. Jamie asks, with the changes to the standards of professional conduct, what will the board do about enforcement? Is there funding for enforcement, and how do we intend? So, what do you want to take? Or I'll close out, or if you want to talk about that.
Well, it's a core function of the CFP Board to provide that enforcement. Our standards would not have the teeth that they do, and our Discipline and Ethics Commission exists solely for the purpose of helping the professional staff and attorneys that we have here at CFP Board to fairly assess the activities and performance of CFP professionals when a problem has been brought to light, and that will not change under the new proposed standards. Now, we will be working to come out with some FAQs, that type of thing, frequently asked questions to help guide the behavior of CFP professionals in meeting these new standards. We absolutely don't want it to be punitive, but we also know that it's part of our role to provide that guidance.
Yeah, and I would chime in a little bit here, too, because it kind of goes back to the last question about best interest. And, Kevin, you and I went back and forth about the idea of this being the prudent professional idea. And I think one of the beauties of the CFP Board's approach, and it's a very robust enforcement approach, is to, when you're brought into question as to your conduct, you're brought before professionals. You're brought before what amounts to a jury of your peers to assess whether what you did was sound from a standpoint of the facts and circumstances involved. So this is not a system whereby we have uninformed people passing judgment. These are professionals who give a fair hearing to what the individual did in the context of the high standards of CFP Board. So I think that we can certainly say that we're proud of the approach that we take to enforcement, and there is an elaborate appeals process as well to make sure that we get it right.
Absolutely. And the only thing I would add, the FINRA website lists 175 designations and certifications. 100 of them start with the letter C. And as you look at those, they all have some kind of high-minded sounding code of practice or aspirational standards. But there are, as we know, and for those of you practicing CFP professionals, there are fewer than a handful that actually take the enforcement of those standards seriously, and for which there are consequences to not following the standards. And I would submit that that gives CFP certification great currency among policymakers, among the consumer finance press. It's what makes CFP certification relevant, and it's what makes CFP certification known for its high standards among the public. Clint has a question about the exam pass rate. We're going to move on, if that's okay. We have about 10 minutes left. Clint has a question about pass rates. We get this when we're out on the road. He's done some calculations. Bottom line, he has noted that the pass rates have increased to 5 to 6 percentage points going back to 2003. Richard, why don't you take that? And I may have some thoughts there, too.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to assure everyone that we are not making the exam easier or lowering standards to get people in the door. We have folks that basically examine our exam to make sure that it is statistically relevant and it's at the right difficulty level. And the pass rate for the CFP exam varies from one exam administration to the next and has ranged from around 50% to up to 70%. The recent rise in pass rates for first-time exam takers is something that we attribute to better prepared exam takers themselves. The CFP Board, as you mentioned, does have a strategic priority of expanding access to competent and ethical financial planning by increasing the number and diversity of CFP professionals. And to achieve that, we've implemented several programs to help candidates through the certification process. We want our candidates to have a good understanding of what's required from them and to approach the exam prepared for success. In recent years, we have released resources like practice exams and an exam candidate handbook, with suggestions for exam study and preparation. We also have an active online candidate forum that allows candidates to connect and support each other as they proceed through the education, examination, and experience requirements process.
You know, and I'm not going to submit that it's a cause and effect, but we know that the people who buy the practice exam have a pass rate up to 10% higher than those who don't. And we've added, as you may recall, back in 2012, the capstone course requirement. So to that point about being better prepared, the objective of the capstone course requirement is that you demonstrate the ability to integrate and apply the information of CFP certification and then communicate it, and that's what the exam is all about, testing your competency at integrating and applying the information. We're going to move on. We have a question that Sven asked, what are the rules for waiving or reducing the experience requirement? I'll just quickly say that there is no, you cannot waive or reduce them. We have several pathways. We have the apprenticeship program, which is a 2-year when you're under the tutelage of a CFP certificate and you're practicing all 6 steps, perhaps 7 steps after the new standards are applied, but practicing all the steps of the financial planning process. Let's see, looking who else is weighing in. Samrita writes, could CFP Board offer more frequent CE webinars related to the CFP program to help its professionals stay up to date with relevant study materials and learn from others? Richard?
Well, you may or may not be aware, Samrita, but CFP Board does not provide continuing education programs, but rather delegates that responsibility for developing and delivering CE programs to our CE sponsors. A few years ago, we asked CE professionals and other stakeholders to weigh in on a range of potential changes to our CE requirements, including the proposal that CFP Board become a provider for CE program. The feedback we received told us loud and clear that CFP professionals wanted quality over quantity when it came to CE. And as Kevin shared, we are working with our CE sponsors to increase the quality and the variety of CE programming available to our CFP professionals.
And we have over 1,000 CFP Board organizations, companies who are providing CE, so that who have registered with us. So there are literally tens of thousands of CE programs. Looking on just kind of quickly, what are your plans for keeping the CE designation from getting buried in a soup of acronyms that are not as meaningful as CFP, asked Tracy. Look, that's an ongoing effort. I mentioned 175 designations. Our goal, and that is the primary objective of the public awareness campaign, is to keep CFP certification at the top of mind for people if and when they are seeking a financial planner or financial advice. I'm going to move on down. Blaine, John writes, could CFP Board have their own national annual conference? You know, they're suggesting that perhaps we might have a conference for all things CFP.
Right. Well, CFP Board does not have plans to get into the business of conference hosting for financial advisors. That field is already pretty crowded, and so I would encourage you to take another look at the conference offerings from FPA as well as from NAPFA. Both FPA and NAPFA do require CFP certification for full membership. Their conferences are predominantly designed for and attended by CFP professionals, and they've dedicated certainly a great deal of energy over the years to developing quality conference programming. So if you're interested in academic research relating to financial planning, then I would also encourage you to consider attending our Center for Financial Planning's Academic Research Colloquium next February.
Yeah.
I think those are the ways to go.
Absolutely. Just one final question. Ferdinand writes, as many CFP professionals are reaching retirement age, I wonder, if we should insist that they continue to pay the annual fee. And this is a question that we've heard over and over. Our friend Ben Coombs has raised that issue. We've had communication. We're working on it. I don't have anything to announce now. We've had several ideas that we've floated past the board of directors. Nothing to announce now, but it is something that we're aware of. Look, how great it must be to be a CFP professional and have grown up as the profession has grown up. And we're looking for a way to honor those people who have dedicated their entire working careers to serving clients and providing competent and ethical advice. And so stay tuned on that one. I've heard it. I've been here 10 years. I've been hearing it from nearly the day I arrived. Hopefully we have a way to address the issue soon. We're almost out of time. Blaine, what would you share to kind of wrap up the webinar?
Well, first and foremost, I appreciate everyone taking the time to join us on this webinar today. I think it's great that we've got such a great turnout and that we had so many excellent questions. I'm thankful for the support that CFP Board receives from the CFP professional community. We certainly value your engagement and input with us. CFP Board's mission is possible only because of support from CFP professionals who share with us their time and their resources and their expertise. So with our recently released draft of the proposed revisions to the standards of professional conduct, we are particularly interested in your input and do urge you, please make your voices heard. So take the time to review the proposal and share your feedback with us.
And I echo Blaine's appreciation for everyone listening in today and look forward to reviewing your feedback on the proposed standards. I also encourage everyone to take a look at the Center for Financial Planning and consider how you can support this important initiative and its programs like the I Am a CFP Pro campaign, Financial Planner Reentry Initiative, and the Academic Research Colloquium. Your donation to the Center for Financial Planning will support important research and initiatives that will advance our profession of financial planning. We are seeking your financial support as well as your time and expertise to advance the work of the Center.
Well, gentlemen, I share your appreciation for the support of the CFP profession community. I'd also like to thank Blaine, Richard, and the entire board for their leadership and commitment to CFP certification, and for the Commission on Standards and everyone involved in developing the proposed standards. The review of the standards has involved a substantial amount of work over the past year and a half. We hope that everyone in the community will take time to review the proposal and share feedback with us. We also hope that you would contact CFP Board when you can contribute to one of our initiatives or when you have new ideas you believe that are in line with the mission. This will wrap up our webinar today here in Pittsburgh. Blaine, it's good to be in your hometown. Thank you all for sharing this update on CFP Board's work, and to everyone who joined us for the webinar today. A recording of this presentation will be posted to CFP Board's website within the next week, and CFP Board will follow up with those of you who asked questions we did not have time to address during this broadcast. And with that, we say so long from Pittsburgh.